There is a popular autism YouTuber by the name of Meg from I'm Autistic Now What, who has been doing a lot of stuff on drama within the autistic community. Well, today we're going to be having a look at a video called Sia Responded, and she isn't sorry. Now, I don't know if you have been following the whole Sia thing. They made a movie. A lot of autistic people didn't like it. I think it got cancelled. And since then, I have heard some stuff about Sia, sort of trying to make sort of a redemption arc in a sense. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on it. But we're going to have a look at Meg's today.
About a month ago, I made a 40-minute video about Sia. She is, as I'm sure you know, quite a controversial figure within the autistic community. Sia is a pop musician and songwriter, but in 2021, she made a movie called Music about a very high support needs, non-speaking autistic girl. And Sia herself has referred to the movie as Rain Man the Musical.
You know, I short described this movie as Rain Man the Musical.
The autistic character was called Music, and the movie was criticized quite a lot for a one-dimensional portrayal of an autistic person, and also because other characters in the movie restrain Music a number of times in ways that are known to be dangerous, and the movie kind of presents these restraints as the perfect solution, the only solution really to Music's meltdowns. Once her sister, who has been forced to look after Music against her will, once she figures out how to do this, it's like she can finally cope with and finally understand autism, apparently. I watched the film for the first time, and then I made that 40-minute video. I discussed my thoughts, but I also discussed the fact that since making the movie and receiving a lot of backlash, Sia herself was actually diagnosed autistic. It was a bit of a plot twist, so I wanted to...
It's got a better review than Borderlands, the movie. Don't know if you've seen that. That was a bit of a flop, wasn't it?
Discuss, does that change anything? Some people, mainly Sia's friends, believe it kind of fully excuses her, and other people online felt like it made it even worse that she was now diagnosed autistic as well. My conclusion was basically it doesn't really change things either way. She didn't know she was autistic when she made the movie. She didn't know very much about autism, and she still went ahead and made a movie about autism, about an autistic person who has a very different presentation to her. And
I actually saw this... This would be a really good video to react to. But I don't know if you... I imagine that there'll be some crossover between autism and SCP-related videos. Don't know if you guys have seen it. There's a few YouTubers who create, like... SCP is this whole, like, there's anomalies, and they're being held in, like, a scientific bunker and stuff. And they do really cool sort of story-related things. They made one about an autistic child, and it was really questionable. We've got to watch that at some point.
And she's also said that the character of Music was based on the autistic son of a friend of hers, so Music is based on one single autistic person. I personally feel like her own diagnosis doesn't really change that. I think what would have changed that would have been an apology and also removing those harmful scenes, which is something that she promised to do over Twitter, but then has just never done. But if you go to watch the movie now, you'll see that both of the scenes are still present. I've never heard of any...
I imagine it's quite distressing to watch as well, you know, as an autistic person, if you've gone through that stuff. I don't imagine there was like a host of trigger warnings at the start. Although there might have been.
Seeing a version of the film without those restraint scenes in there. But I actually found that I did miss something pretty big when I was researching for that video. It was tucked away behind a paywall on Apple Music. Sia has this interview with Zane Lowe that she did at the end of last year. She had a lot to say, and her reflections on the movie in light of her own diagnosis were pretty disappointing, sadly. So the main point of this interview was to unpack Sia's new music. Music as in songs, not music the movie. It's not getting a sequel. Don't worry. Don't panic. But it's the usual kind of Zane Lowe thing. If you've seen his interviews before, you'll probably know what I mean. He's usually over the top positive when he's speaking to artists, very encouraging. It's kind of how he gets them to open up. The conversation takes a similar turn with Sia, and they start talking about how her mental health was really low following the release of the movie and all of the backlash. She talks about how they'd had to cancel a previous interview due to her emotional state.
You've written a book of life, man, through songs. You continue to do it. It's amazing. I'm so glad that you did. I'm sorry you went through such a tough time to do it.
Didn't I have to cancel one of our sessions because I was crying too much?
Yeah, there was a moment when we were supposed to talk and it was just too much. You were very kind. You were like, I just can't do it right now.
It took me 20 years to make that movie. I made it, directed, wrote the music and wrote the film with my friend. It took me 20 years of thinking about it and then like 5-6 years to make it and then edit it.
And I do sympathize with...
Here's what I don't understand. If it's taken that long, you know, perhaps at some point they would have found content from autistic people and been like, okay, maybe I should like talk to one of those people. Set up a call, you know, do a bit of networking, try to understand the scene. Sorry for the boop. Try to understand the scene, you know, what kind of community you're representing. Try to understand the complexity of it, at least. And then, like, maybe have, like, a panel of people that you can talk to when you're making an autism-related film. I think that would be probably a good way of going about it. I don't understand how it's been that long in the making and the running that they couldn't do that. It's confusing to me.
As with Sia, I do genuinely think this was a project that she really believed in, and she put a lot of time and a lot of money went into this as well. I'm sure there were a lot of people counting on her. The movie made a really big financial loss, and despite having 2 Golden Globe nominations, which we'll talk about a little bit more, they'll come up a little bit later on, the movie was received very negatively, both by critics and by the general public and by the autistic community. It isn't nice to fail, obviously, and I can't imagine what it's like to fail and then also have Twitter coming at you with pitchforks. It must have been pretty difficult to handle.
5-6 years to make it and then edit it. And then I got into a stupid Twitter spat with somebody autistic.
So here she makes it sound a bit like she had this great movie that she'd been working on for years and years, and then she got into one single argument on Twitter, and then that kind of triggered all of the backlash and ruined everything. She did have this one particular Twitter exchange, which has become sort of infamous now. There's lots of screenshots of it on.
Let's have a read of this. Several autistic actors, myself included, responded to these tweets. We all said that we could have acted in or it in on short notice. These excuses are just that, excuses. A matter of fact, zero effort was made to include anyone who was actually autistic. Ooh. Maybe you're just a bad actor. God damn it. Oh. I mean, it's Twitter, isn't it? I don't know what to expect. The only thing I see on Twitter is just, or see from Twitter, is just negativity and horribleness. And, like, fighting. Like, from both sides. Like, even if one person's, like, more in the right, you know? It's just it's not the nice to see that kind of stuff. Honestly, Rain Man is better. That's an interesting take. Tom Cruise using his brother to cheat at card games. Interesting take. The bad score makes me want to watch it to see why it was hated. Yeah, I can understand that. Makes you wonder if she has like a bunch of people, yes, around her. Yeah. And she fired people that provided critical feedback. I see.
It online, which I think she talks about later on within the interview. But while Sia becoming angry and defensive over Twitter, that certainly didn't help anything. That wasn't the reason why people, and autistic people in particular, weren't happy with the movie. Regardless, the movie's content is still the same. It was still an outdated portrayal that at times uncritically presented techniques, which have led to autistic people losing their lives. Sia then goes on to talk about her own autism diagnosis.
Guess what else? It turns out, ironically, that then Kathy Griffin, one of my friends, said to me, I think you're autistic. And so I went and I had a neuropsych eval, and it took 18 hours over the course of like 5-6 days. And it turned out that I'm level 2 autistic, which is there's 3 levels.
Wow.
It feels a bit like Sia is using this as a sort of gotcha moment. The autistic people criticize me.
I think it's a gotcha moment for that particular instance. Like it's, I mean, they obviously included an autistic person in like the writing of it, but it doesn't really matter to a certain degree. It really depends on what the actual thing is, especially when it's being broadcast to like, well, it's been broadcast in film to like a mainstream audience, like in very recent times, and just seem to be very unaware of what is happening in the autistic communities. It's very, very bizarre.
Me for making a movie about autism, but it turns out I'm actually autistic, but not just autistic, I'm level 2 autistic. I've hit the 2nd level. But maybe I'm looking at that too cynically. Maybe she actually wanted to emphasize her level of support needs and the fact that her assessment went on for 18 hours because she's had some pushback. She's had some people not believing her maybe in her real life and maybe online as well. I've definitely seen that, sadly, from some autistic people as well. In general, there were just some really odd responses online to see her coming out and saying that she was autistic. Lots of people saying like, I'm sorry, or I'll pray for you, or like, I always thought you were weird and I always thought your music was weird. It's like, it just shows you that the general public has some not great ideas. That's a really important thing to highlight. Like, as much as the autism community is growing, we're really not at a point where the general public has, like, they have an awareness that autism exists, but they're really not aware of stuff, you know? They're not part of the autistic communities.
I think sometimes, and even myself at one point, would kind of get the impression, because every time that you open a social media app, you see a bunch of autism things, that's what's happening on the internet, and it is not. Just like, go over to the trending page. Most people just, they just have very little knowledge or understanding, and most people just don't have the ignition to want to understand more or be aware of things, like, unless they have some people in their life, or, you know, etc., etc. Funny pause. Yes, the earrings are great.
Ideas about autism, which is why autism representation in the media does matter. But Sia then goes on to misrepresent these support levels.
I'm level 2 autistic, which is, there's 3 levels.
Wow.
And 1 is Asperger's, 2 is pretty autistic, and 3 is like non-verbal.
So no, it isn't a scale from Asperger's to non-speaking. The DSM-5 diagnostic...
No, that's a really... That's a real oversimplification. I think if you're talking to a mainstream audience, paying some time to speak about Asperger's, I think, is important, because a lot of people have understood autism as being like, you're autistic or you have Asperger's. Like, as much as we talk about it, you know, people still have like that's their conceptualization, and so you should address it, but like you can still correct it as well at the same time. Do you know what I mean? And also, that doesn't make any sense. It's like this, like the amount and the strength of traits that you have, and also your requirement for support. That's what it is related to. Scale from Asperger's to non-speaking. Oh, it's very oversimplified. I understand where they're coming from, but it's really not the best way of describing it. Like, Jesus.
Diagnostic criteria has 3 levels of support. So the first one is requires support, and then level 2 is requires substantial support, not being pretty autistic, as Sia phrases it.
I'm pretty autistic.
And then level 3 is requires very substantial support. Diagnosticians can specify whether the diagnosis is being made with or without language impairment, as they call it, but support needs are not decided solely based on someone's ability to speak. Obviously, I'm not trying to undermine here the fact that being non-speaking will likely mean that somebody does.
I mean, I think that, like, I just think that they just don't have not a lot of knowledge on it. They haven't educated themselves, obviously, which is worrying considering that they're making a film about it.
He does need more support from the people around them, but the autism spectrum is not a straight line from excellent speaking ability to non-speaking on the other end. It would be a bit neater and easier maybe if it did work that way. Maybe that's why people like to see autism in this quite linear way. It's just, you know, mentally a bit easier to organize, but it's actually really confusing and messy and all over the place, and there are loads and loads of different autistic traits. On this channel, I often talk about the spike.
I think there's an importance of, like, simplifying it for a mainstream audience to a certain degree, but you could still do that. You could just say someone has more support needs as their and a more sort of strong, significant, whatever you want to call it, amount of traits associated with it. I think that's a pretty good way of explaining it. You know, I don't think that needs to be simplified. But yeah, I think a lot of people they conflate it. But like, how much autism do you have? You know. We've had that conversation so many times. Where are you on the scale of, I have a little bit of autism? Like, no, you do not. You have traits that also autistic people can have. Some, and it's not autism related. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, the whole ASD 1, 2, and 3 scale is like its own thing. The autism spectrum is another thing. It's conceptualized very differently person to person. Some people see it as like a bar chart. Some people see it as like switches being on and off. Some people see it as some kind of... So I made a video on the autism spectrum and someone wanted me to like plot out an 8-dimensional graph of autism traits. I'm like, what is that going to accomplish? I don't know. I try my best, you know. I'm not gonna download some crazy software and try and plot out the entire autism spectrum, but I think people can get they can understand the point. You know, traits are different between people, and it's a spectrum of different traits, but it's not necessarily related to someone's support needs all the time. Spiky profile, yes, I love the spiky profile.
The spiky profile, autistic people can have quite extreme strengths and weaknesses when compared to non-autistic people, but someone having skills.
Me, speaking, writing, good. Basic maths, not the best, just mental maths. Also, a lot of different things, you know, and it's not always correlated. A lot of people correlate your competency in one area with your competency in other areas, which is why we talk about the spiky profile, because just because we're good at one thing, even if it's pretty similar, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be as good, or our competency is going to be at the point at which they think it would be, based on how good we are at a certain thing, you know? Kind of like saying, okay, you're good at doing YouTube videos, which means you must be good at streaming, which means you must be good at podcasting and in-person interviews and public speaking, you know? It's similar, but different, you know? You can apply that spiky profile in a lot of different ways too, for sure. That's why they've made to calculate itself, for sure. So it's exhibiting standard autistic survival instincts, just digging in and lashing out. Hopefully, with time, she'll come to realize how harmful her film is, make a true apology. Yeah, I mean, it can all pretty much, I mean, not blow over, but I mean, the ideal sort of, you know, route to take, I think, after this whole thing is getting involved in the autistic community and try and learn and speak to other autistic people and show them speaking to other autistic people, even if they disagree with them, even if they say stuff that they don't like to hear, and they correct them on things that they think about autism. You know, that's the ideal redemption arc. But it's hard. I mean, some people who are kind of a part of the whole media lifestyle, you know, some people who may have an ungodly amount of confidence and conviction in what they say and what they do, they can find it hard to genuinely sort of self-reflect sometimes. I mean, you see it a lot in different other spaces, for sure, with celebrities and things of that nature. Not everybody, of course, but yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, as Katja said, like, we can all empathize with not knowing much about autism. Like, I think we've all been in that spot at some point. But having access to, like, Hollywood or, like, the movie business and having all that money and all that time, you think that they would have done a bit more digging, like, just to make sure they got it sorted. You know what I mean?
Skills in one area, whether that's songwriting or having an excellent speaking ability, that doesn't make them less autistic, basically. And then on the other hand, not being able to communicate by speaking doesn't mean that somebody isn't able to communicate at all. It also doesn't tell you anything about their intelligence or what strengths and talents they may have. We also haven't grouped autism into subtypes such as Asperger's since 2013.
One is Asperger's.
This is because scientists found that while clinicians could reliably say whether somebody was autistic or not autistic, they couldn't reliably say if they had Asperger's or another one of them.
PDD-NOS. That's a strange one. I've met some people with PDD-NOS. They just seem autistic. Just like autistic, you know. And to be honest, the people I have talked to with it, they tend to be quite extroverted autistic people, you know. We come across those. They're a rare breed, you know. There's extroverted people work in sales, work in communications or something. They're really good at work in a room, really good at like leading, but they're autistic. See you later, Mike. It's good to have you here, my friend. Yeah, you could find it hard to listen to controversy and conflicting opinions. I mean, that's something that everyone can struggle with, but you do seem to see it a lot more in like all like Hollywood kind of media and film industry and celebrity sort of areas of life, you know. And I imagine there's some levels of confidence that come with having such a position. I just wish that people are just a little bit more like their conviction and confidence being a lot more in line with their capability and understanding. I would like that. That would make me feel good if people did that, but it's not the truth. And quite often, a lot of the people that I've met who have very, very strong degrees of conviction are just really, really wrong on like loads of things, you know? My God.
The old subtypes of autism. And they also found no biological differences between these different categories of autistic person. Saying autism spectrum condition is therefore more accurate, particularly because autistic people do tend to be so different from each other. It allows for more individuality, which is great.
It made a lot of sense to me because I've suffered my whole life, like really suffered, and I didn't know why. And it felt like I had to put on a human suit all the time, like to go out and be part of the world.
There's so much wrapped up in this because obviously obviously it's to some degree what was drawing you to
that subject matter.
So they imply here that Sia was drawn to the topic of autism because she herself was autistic all along. In an interview before the movie was released, Sia did speak about how she's always felt like she has an affinity for people with special abilities, which is how she referred to autistic people at the time.
And they're called special abilities now, not special needs. Yeah, the people with special abilities.
I wonder if she would still use that phrase now, and I wonder how she would feel if somebody used that phrase about her. That might be quite telling, I don't know. But it seems like from what Sia has said, she was at least somewhat close to the autistic son of a friend of hers. Who knows, maybe she did feel somewhat safer around other autistic and disabled people. Perhaps she felt less pressure to mask or some sort of affinity.
Well, I can imagine that there must be some like strong feelings of wanting to like tell their story, you know, tell that person's story. But again, it's in the details. What have they done to sort of make the whole thing representative of autism because you're making an autism film? It's just kind of a given, isn't it?
Affinity for people who are also different from the norm because she'd always felt different in some way. However, that still doesn't make this a good or well-researched or well-informed or sensitive movie. Perhaps if she had done a bit more research, if she had known a bit more about autism when making this movie, she would have realised that she was autistic a lot sooner, or at least she would have upset the community.
I'll tell you one thing, hot take from Thomas over here. Although it wasn't the best film, and I mean, that's saying it lightly. It did get a lot of people who were outside of the autistic community being aware of autism. That's one thing that it has done. You can probably say the same of Rain Man as well. You know, people are aware of autism. It might not be the most accurate depiction of autism, but I'd hazard a guess that it has had some amount of impact on the autistic community in both negative and positive ways. It'd just be nice to have like just a good autism movie, you know. That'd be so good.
A lot less. And while sometimes undiagnosed autistic people may find that they gravitate towards other autistic people, there are other autistic people that report feeling the exact opposite way towards other autistic people. This is a quote from an article titled "Being Autistic Doesn't Absolve Sia of Dangerous Ableism," which was written by another late diagnosed autistic person. When I was in primary school, I felt a burning embarrassment watching an autistic boy in my class struggle to make friends and move his body appropriately in a playground. As an adult, I cringed at other grown adults having meltdowns in public or enjoying their special interests. Years later, at the age of 28, I was diagnosed as autistic. It is possible to be autistic and still view autism negatively, whether you know you're autistic or not. Zane,
well, some people it's like a projection, isn't it? Maybe they do that stuff themselves, struggle with those things themselves, but they haven't reached the point, the axe drop, where you have a crisis and you try to figure out why you're having this crisis, you know, and then you realize that, you know, the things that you've been doing to be normal, to mask, have all culminated in having a difficult time in life. And, you know, doing a bit of self-reflection, you start to empathize a bit more with that. I thought a projection too. LMAO, special abilities. Yeah. I've come across people who said that they've got super hearing. I'm like, no, autistic people do not have super hearing. That's not how it works. Our ear canals and eardrums are not specially designed to take in more information. That's not how it works. It's the way that your brain processes the signals that your eardrums are sending to your brain. Maybe it amplifies with them, so you take more notice of them, but you don't have super hearing, you know.
Jane also says here that maybe Sia wanted to tell music story because she was going through the same thing.
To want to contribute to that subject matter, and also would explain why when it was called into question and you...
I don't think this is a thing, like I'm upset at them for... Like, I imagine that they have good intentions with things. I don't imagine that they made it completely to just piss people off, to like give a bad representation. I don't think that. It's just negligence, I think, and it's just not thinking about how like the mass amount of autistic people will feel about this film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not assuming malintent, but it does seem from the way that they've handled this that they have a lot of confidence, defensiveness, conviction in, you know, that's not been the most beneficial for them in this situation, and also, you know, they just haven't gone about actually making the movie in the proper way.
And you are unaware of that you were so upset and felt so attacked because you were going through this.
I don't hate her. I'm just disappointed.
Same thing. This is an incredible realization.
Except Music's story is not Sia's story. Music has a very different presentation of autism to Sia. And again, Sia based the character on her friend's son, not on herself. Just because somebody is autistic doesn't mean they're experts in the entire autistic experience, because it is a spectrum. I think Sia needs to be aware that having the diagnosis doesn't mean that she can do no wrong. Plenty of autistic people have internalized ableism and do and say hurtful things all the time. I think there are plenty of them probably over on the fake disorder cringe subreddit.
Yeah,
But also,
I'd
what
probably
was
say.
extra funny was
Where do you hear all this like general sort of ableist language, or however you want to call it? It's the gaming sections of the internet. I think that there'll be some crossover between gaming and autism. I think there is. Not gonna lie. Other spaces online. We watched that video from FD Signifier about incels. I imagine that there's crossover between that as well. I imagine that they say a lot of not the best things, So there is some crossover there. That's for sure. Can't remember where I was going with that. I had a point. God damn it.
he was, someone had said, I should have gotten Maddie's part. I should have gotten Maddie's part. These are the parts I miss out on that I should get. And I just wrote back like an asshole. I just wrote back or maybe you're just not a very good actor.
Yeah.
So Sia refers to herself as an asshole for clapping back at the autistic actor on Twitter. So it seems like maybe she does have some remorse for that. But she then goes on to act kind of sorry for herself for the fact that people then responded to her by saying she was a bad person.
What was terrible is it was just people were like, maybe you're a bad person. Maybe you're a terrible.
Yeah, I don't think they're a bad person. I just think they need a bit more introspection and reflection. The gamer community is thankfully getting stronger out there, way more inclusive and chill. I have seen that actually, to be honest. Yeah, no, for sure. I think in general there is going to be a good amount of positivity that comes from more people learning about neurodivergency and autism. That is very much for sure, like a definite thing. What I was going to say, yes, the stuff about internalized ableism. The thing is with that term is it is a very subjective thing. Some people classify even the minor of most differences in opinions as having internalized ableism, because it's hinged on the fact that you're not aware of it and you just express this ableism. You just do that. And people's definitions of it are very, very different too, because it's a socio-political thing. It's not biology, So, on one side of the coin, it can be applicable, perhaps in this case, for sure. I would say probably. In other cases, people can just say it out of the blue because they don't agree with another autistic person on something.
Terrible person.
I don't know if Sia realizes that there was a power imbalance here. She's a successful, wealthy person with a large fan base, and she was arguing with an unknown autistic actor on Twitter.
And plus, you were mean to an autistic person, and that's ableist. And I was like, actually,
she's really taken that to heart.
Yeah.
I think I just treated her like I'd treat anybody else on the internet.
So apparently it would be
I get that
ableist
too,
to not be mean and basically try and publicly embarrass autistic people. Maybe we should all be meaner to autistic people. What do you...
No, but I understand, it's the internet, and I imagine, if you're in the midst of a drama or something like that, someone says something, you're like, no. I mean, it's not good to bite back, but it is Twitter, and it is the internet. You don't know this person, I understand that, but probably not the best way of going about it. Comes back to the debate, can or should you separate art from the artist, I guess? Certainly has got people talking. Good art is usually controversial, I think. Very interesting point, Tanwin. Very interesting. Philosophical. Into the mind. There, the discourse, making it so big, probably will inform more people for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what social media is built on, isn't it? Controversy. At least in the upper echelons of what people are talking about, it's always the controversy. And believe me, there is going to be more autism controversy. And there will be. For a while, as it grows, as people are exposed to it and have uneducated opinions on something and choose to act and talk with conviction about something that they don't know very much about, or they may just have a portion of lived experience and perspectives on. Skylark DeVaries says, my friend has a lot of internalized ableism because of how she was used by parents growing up. It's really sad. Yeah, that's another aspect to it. Yeah. Not saying I like it. Yeah, I understand.
What do you think? I don't know, maybe this is too idealistic of me, but maybe we should just try and be nice to everybody regardless of their neurotype. But now we know that Sierra is autistic. Maybe she does struggle with communication. Maybe
if that was the
explain
answer.
this tweet a little bit. Obviously, autistic people can be pretty blunt. But along with this, like, maybe you're a bad actor tweet, she also did several other quite sweary, angry...
Grr, fuckety fuck. Why don't you watch my film before you judge it? Fury. The movie is both a love letter to caregivers and to the autistic community. I have my own unique view of the autistic community, and it is felt unrepresented, and compelled. I felt it is unrepresented and compelled to make it. If it makes me feel shit, I am a shit. But my intentions are awesome. No, I don't. I'm not arguing that I know what their intentions are. Fucking bullshit. You have no fucking idea because you weren't there and haven't seen the movie. You gotta love Twitter. You gotta love it. So apologies if my vitriol came out of nowhere. I just thought it'd be funny.
Seeming tweets. So I think she was just kind of trying to clap back and be kind of nasty in this moment.
And so, of course, when
it's just the internet. It's just Twitter, isn't it?
comes out that, like, I was just speaking to a peer.
Yeah. And no one knew. And nobody knew.
But the thing is, Sia wasn't speaking to a peer, and she doesn't seem to understand this. Most autistic people do not have a $16 million US budget to make a movie about autism, which has the potential to influence the way people all over the world view autistic people. Just because she has the same diagnosis doesn't mean that she isn't in a position of power. But most autistic people do not have that loud of a voice. But luckily, the autistic community were able to be loud enough about this movie, and now anytime you search it, you will just be met with a lot of negative reviews and articles.
Like, I was just speaking to a peer.
Yeah. And no one knew. And nobody knew.
The irony. It was so interesting.
But also,
irony.
The way they both repeat, the irony here, and kind of laugh to themselves gets under my skin. Again, it feels very much like she's using it as a gotcha. You painted me out to be the bad guy, but it turns out I was one of you all along. But surely, with Sia's logic, it would be ableist of us to not continue to criticize her. But seriously, it's a shame because her diagnosis could have led to a bit more self-reflection and
That's some good thinking, Meg. Yeah, I guess so. What, you want us to stop criticizing you because you're autistic? How dare you? I agree with the sentiment, but also people can be nasty online.
And a bit more empathy for other autistic
it's probably
people.
Deserved in this case.
It makes me sad that instead it seems to have led to her and Zane Lowe laughing at the autistic people who criticised the movie. I get that it's Zane's job to kind of butter up the celebrities, and he may have not even seen the movie. He doesn't say that he has, actually. He doesn't make any comments himself about the movie and about the quality of the movie. But I do wonder if this sort of like over-the-top positive vibe is the kind of vibe that Sia is surrounded by constantly. Does she have yes men and people around her who are just always going to tell her everything she does is wonderful? I mean, nobody questioned the movie at any point during production. A few people were fired for negativity on set, so maybe some people did.
I only had to fire 2 people, and as soon as anyone brought a bad vibe, I was like, you're fired.
There was
Bad
backlash
vibe.
immediately once the trailer dropped.
Hey guys, I gotta do this thing which is gonna upset lots of people. Person in the back. I don't think you should do that. I was feeling so positive and confident and convicted today. I was feeling so great. You're giving me a bad vibe. Off of you. We don't need that energy, that spiritual pressure within our space of rational thought and constructive criticism. If Mr. Beast was a woman. Biggest problems I've encountered explaining autism are oversimplified stereotypes closing people's minds. Yes. And then they get the confidence around it. They know something about it. It's the whole, what's it called? When you start learning about a subject, you overestimate how much you know about that subject. And as you learn more about that subject, you underestimate how much you know about that subject. It happens. Because you're aware. Your mind is opened up to all the things that you haven't done a deep dive into, and you're aware that you haven't covered everything. And the more stuff that you learn about, the more questions there are, and so you get a bit more of appreciation for it. Yeah, there's a lot of money, isn't it, on that film? Crazy.
Drop. So there was even time to kind of go back to the drawing board then. I don't know, maybe we'd already spent the 16 million and it was too late and we just rolled with it. But I think this is all a pretty good example of why we shouldn't treat celebrities like all-knowing gods, because they're just people who make dumb mistakes and are maybe actually more likely to make dumb mistakes because they're kind of out of touch and living in a celebrity bubble, and maybe, you know, surrounded by people who are just going to blow smoke up their bum constantly and tell them they're incredible. Is it really a surprise that Sia's movie about a non-speaking, very high support needs autistic girl who seemingly lives in poverty, is it any surprise that that fell flat? I also found this next bit quite interesting. I think Zayn wants to ask Sia what she's learnt following her autism diagnosis, but he can't quite bring himself to say the word autism or autistic. He refers to it as who you are and what it is you've been living with throughout your life and understanding how to live with that going forwards.
I guess my question is, like, moving forward now, aside from learning about who you are and what it is that you've been living with for
The funny thing is, this is generally how a lot of neurotypicals talk to me when they're trying to learn about autism. If I meet people in real life and they're genuinely interested and want to learn and they have a high regard for me, they will speak like this. And I think it's mostly the result of all the language related stuff, all the ways of referring to it, that sort of, it gets in the way of them speaking properly, you know? It's like they don't want to ask the wrong question, they don't want to say the wrong thing, and so they sort of do this beating around the bush approach of just being as general as possible rather than just asking you the question. Because people do actually, like, if you ask them a question and it's like a stereotype that they've asked you about, like, people can get upset at that. They can take that in itself, asking that question, as like an insult, an offense, you know, something of that nature, which I think is a really bad way of going about it. Because again, I think those people are just overestimating how much the general person understands about it. You know, it's kind of annoying as well. I'm just like, look, ask me a question. I don't care how you say it. If you just want to ask a question about something, say autism, say whatever term you mean. As long as I understand what you are communicating to me, I am fine. Do not worry. Don't worry your brain. It's okay. I'm a safe person to speak to. Thomas, it's because of the ignorance and assumptions. I think part of it is being afraid to offend, but also ignorant a little bit. Yeah. But I think in those cases, they're aware of their ignorance around it. And the generally, people who do that tend to be really nice, lovely, sort of open people, and they want to approach it with sensitivity. But, you know, it just stops them from asking questions that they want to know the answer to. You know, they get worried. That's why that's why you own any stereotypes you identify with. I'm autistic, and yes, I'm good at math. It's okay, ask your question. Yeah, I vibe with that, to be honest. You seem like a cool person to interact with. Yeah.
Throughout your life, and understanding how to live with that going forward with a better knowledge of yourself.
I just wanted to say the word autistic. I think people are scared to sometimes.
Can't
There
do
you go.
it.
You can. You can do it. You can. You can.
I mean,
But what ones if people turn around in 5 or 10... I'm ranting a lot today, I apologise. People turn around 5 or 10 years and suddenly autism is an offensive thing. And then people clip that clip of them saying that autism is an offensive terminology to use. And it's like neuro-auti. I'm trying to think of scenarios like that. And then someone clips this interview from like ages ago of them saying something about it. Like at the time, it's fine, you know. I was trying to think of why they would avoid using the word autism. I think it's just fear, like especially if you do it having a very positive podcasty thingy. Like I imagine there's a lot of tension, especially if you're talking about a group of people. You know, who knows what will happen.
I mean, there is disagreement about how autistic people like to refer to themselves. I mean, Sia has already referred to herself throughout this interview. I don't know, some autistic people like to say I'm autistic. Some people like to say I have autism. Maybe Zayn was somewhat aware of that and didn't want to get it wrong. but probably not. I'd say probably not. I do think people are scared to say it, perhaps particularly when they're talking to somebody who doesn't quite fit the stereotype. Maybe they feel almost like it's gonna be insulting. Often you see people kind of skirting around it or reverting to phrases that kind of feel a bit like euphemisms, like on the spectrum. Whenever I hear people say on the spectrum, I just instantly visualize like two moms in the playground kind of gossiping, whispering to each other, and one of them's like, oh, isn't Freddie a bit naughty? And then the other mom's like, oh, well, actually, I hear he might be on the spectrum. Just want to say to any neurotypicals watching, it's not a dirty word. It's not a swear word. It's okay. You can say autistic. You can say autism. It's fine. I just think it feels like such a loaded word. It's such a stigmatized word.
What it is that you've been...
It's loaded because people get so upset about different aspects of language, and they generally get harassed and hated on for it. It can be a lovely sort of accepting open space, but some people within the autistic community are just very, very, like, I don't know, trigger happy. Like they just fire off any, they advocate. They're a militant advocator. They'll just attack people based on small things. And there's a fair few of people who are like that. Like it's a thing. It is a thing. So I can understand people's hesitancy around talking about particular diversity groups. Because, I've done the same. Like I went to Pride, London Pride. I'm not under the LGBTQIA label. I feel like I'm doing that with like speaking about it. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm coming at it from my perspective. I'm open to you correcting or like convincing me otherwise, or let's opening my mind to different sort of opinions and stuff. But I still feel a sense of tension talking about it because I'm not part of that. I don't know much about it,
living with.
Anyway, for some reason, Sia's response to this is to bring up QAnon, the far-right conspiracy group.
What else did you learn from that experience, do you think, coming out?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I learned about QAnon. But that's not about me personally.
What
it was
QAnon?
The best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so grateful to Kathy Griffin for just saying, we think you're autistic and you should get tested. And then she taught me about all of the QAnon and Reddit and where things like that come from, like where all of the negativity comes from. And then about algorithms and how then that gets sent to wherever, whatever. I didn't know any of this shit.
I don't think this is a result of QAnon and Reddit. I think it's just I just think it's just a large amount of autistic people on lots of different places just not liking it. QAnon. That's terrible. It's like saying that a heart condition is offensive. Might be scared to say autistic. No, I'm not saying that people do find the word autistic offensive. But maybe in like a few years' time, we look back, people have changed the terminology so much that the way that you spoke about it 10 years ago would upset people of the modern time. I can imagine stuff like that happening. I still get it. Like when, the term Asperger's was not something that people were upset about. It was something that I was diagnosed with. And so I talked about it a lot with that label. I still get people from the modern day finding those videos and talking about it and saying, I'm a horrible person because of that, just trying to put it into perspective a little bit about why people might be so beating around the bush when talking about it, especially if they're outside of it. Thank you for being an ally, Thomas. Oh, no problem. I mean, I have people in my life who are LGBT, and it makes me sad when bad stuff happens to them because of it. I want them to be able to be open about it, not have to risk themselves by being open about it.
It seems like she might have coped with the backlash by convincing herself that it actually wasn't genuine criticism, but it was just a result of conspiracy theorists online.
It was really devastating. I thought it was my fans and that they hated me, that they had turned against me. But it actually was people pretending to be my fans that had turned against me.
Crazy.
And in fact, when I look back on it, it wasn't really real. Like, it never affected my music business.
I'm not surprised that it didn't really affect her music.
It's
I think
really
there's not so much
way.
of a cancel culture online as there used to be. I don't think Sia's career needed to end. I wouldn't have wished for it to end. I wouldn't have wished for any harm on her. I think it would have been very awful if...
To be honest, I kind of vibe with the really low fringe. It looks silly, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like I could be really comfortable with that haircut. No need to make eye contact with anybody. It's kind of like having an emo fringe.
if she had, done something serious as a result of this backlash. I do, as I say, genuinely hope that she's doing okay. I get that there probably were a lot of people who went over the top online with the negativity. I mean, I saw this TikTok that went up at the time, which referred to Sia as a monster, which bit too much, bit too far. People often do just take it too far. I think it becomes kind of fun to have the like celebrity punching bag of the week. People can really enjoy the outrage for whatever psychological reason that is. And sometimes what starts as like a legitimate concern sort of devolves into a witch hunt. I mean, the whole thing with Blake Lively at the moment, again, started with some legitimate concerns and criticisms. And now I'm just seeing things like, in 2009, she glared at a co-star from across the room. She is evil.
Never affected anything. It affected the movie. Like, people wrote, I got a Golden Globe nomination, and they've sent a petition trying to get...
Yeah, crazy hair queen Sia. Agree, most autistic look. Are you getting the bow, Thomas? I mean, I'll get a bow. I mean, I tell you what, if we get 5 new members today, I will get a black bow, and I will wear it on one of my streams in the future. Yeah, like calm down. Yeah, just chill out. Just make an account on Twitter. Just make like 1,000 accounts that just like reply to tweets and just say like chill out, anything that goes trending, because you can usually find that the trending things are controversial. Just have loads of people just saying chill out. It's not like don't do that. We don't need any more bots online.
Trying to get it taken away from me.
Yeah.
So that was heartbreaking.
I guess QAnon were behind the petition to get the Golden Globe removed as well. I feel almost mean joking about it, though. It feels like she's quite far removed from reality. But Sia's response here seems so incredibly self-involved. They're trying to take my Golden Globe nomination away from me. It's weird because there's an interview from around the time when the movie was released where Sia kind of implies that she might be able to see where some people are coming from and like, oh, maybe some of these criticisms are correct.
We can't really talk about the film without acknowledging the controversy that surrounds it. What do you think people have got wrong?
Maybe they're not wrong.
But it seems like she's completely walked that back now and doesn't feel like she was at fault whatsoever. But anyway, despite the nominations, Sia ended up with 3 Golden Raspberries. Instead, she didn't get any Golden Globes. It is quite surprising that it was nominated in the wake of all the backlash, but apparently these things are often pretty corrupt, so maybe it's not surprising. Zane Lowe then goes on to suggest that maybe people's opinion of the movie will change with time. He actually compares it to this album that he didn't appreciate fully when it was first released, but now really, really loves, and now can recognize that it was before its time. Sia agrees and is hopeful that the movie will have a comeback at some point in the future.
But also like, fuck, I got a Golden Globe nomination. That's like, that's so unbelievable.
Like, I mean, the art exists and the movie exists, it will forever exist. I always think about things like this as well, as that ultimately over time, art changes shape. And as it's absorbed and discovered by people away from the context of the time.
I think you're right. I think it'll have a little renaissance. That would be really nice. Be really sweet. Make me really happy.
When I hear this, I do wonder why Sia ever said that she was planning to remove the restraint scenes. She also said on Twitter that she was planning to put a warning in the movie, and that hasn't happened either. Neither of those things have happened. I think it's clear from the way she speaks about this movie, I feel like you can hear it in her voice here, that she still loves it. She's still very attached to it. I don't think she wants to change anything about it. I don't think she thinks there's anything wrong with it. I think she's completely closed off to that being a possibility. And I mean, yes, it would affect the plot to remove those scenes. I mean, you could argue that there isn't much of a plot to affect, but the plot that is there would be affected because, as I say, the restraint scenes are presented as the solution to music being autistic almost. In the storyline, it's like the most important thing, if not the only thing that Music Sister learns about, how to take care of music. To be honest, when you think about it, without those scenes, I'm not sure how much music would even be part of the plot at all, which again is kind of part of the problem with this movie. So I don't think Sia wants those scenes gone.
It's the central part. You take out the things that people don't like, and it's the central part. I understand. You can't remove it. Just crumple up the paper, put it in the bin, start fresh. Get involved in the community a little bit. Just meet some people who aren't really, really angry online. Who like, they may be angry and upset, but they're not like wanting to attack you. Just meet people like that within the community and just don't get upset if people say negative things about the film or like views that you have, and just kind of understand it, where they're coming from. And you know, talking like Sia's gonna watch this video. Dang it, I'm already a member. Oh, I gotta get that black bow.
Gone, but I do think safety should come first. Who cares about the plot at the end of the day? We don't want people reacting to autistic meltdowns in this way, jumping on top of them and pinning them down with their full weight. One scene, music literally is overwhelmed by some children running past her in a park, and their first reaction, rather than, you know, taking her elsewhere or doing something else to calm her down, it's like, no, we just need to restrain her instantly. I am sad that she seems to have found ways to completely dismiss all of the criticisms and just, you know, relieve herself of all accountability. I mean, it's kind of impressive in a way, the mental gymnastics that she seems to have done. I don't think it's too late for her to come out and truly apologize and, you know, actually take some action this time. I don't think
she's in the social media film rabbit hole. Every detractor is always is the same person. It's just the internet, and she's got to fight. She's got to fight the internet. I understand it. Like, it's hard to sort of. I can imagine if you're getting that much hate, you're getting that much backlash, it's going to be very, very difficult to take like a measured response and like interact with those with a person from that group of people in sort of a constructive way. I get it, but I think it needs to be done. It just needs to be done. You know, just open your mind. Open your mind.
I don't think she will, but I don't think it's ever too late. But let me know what you think. Do you think music is going to be having a comeback in the 2030s? Let me know. Anyway, no more celebrity drama next week, I promise. I'm hopefully posting a video that I'm quite excited about. I've spent 27 hours scripting and researching it so far, and I'm nowhere near, I think I'm about halfway done probably. Thank you so much to everybody who does support me over on Patreon. It obviously would not be possible for me to be spending that much time on one singular video if it wasn't for patrons. I'm so grateful, and I'm also obviously very grateful to everybody who just watches here. But if you do join the Patreon, it costs $4 for the lowest tier, and then you can join the Discord server where you can chat to other autistic people and
let this
people
run.
who suspect they might be autistic. You don't have to be autistic to join. We've been doing quite a lot of fun stuff over there on the Taylor Swift channel. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, we need more Swifties in the server. We're always in need of more of them. We've been kind of ranking songs in the Tortured Poets department, and then we also all played Fall Guys, and it was really fun. We want to do that again soon. So if you're a fan of Fall Guys, or even if you never played it before, I might as well have never played it before because I'm so appallingly bad at it, but it was still really fun. I was laughing so much. It was such a great time, so we're definitely going to do that again soon. Yeah, my husband is very involved in the Discord, and he's really great with like organizing things and stuff, so thank you very much to him. It wasn't all down to me. And when you join, you get access to a load of exclusive videos as well. The most recent one is a wholesome, actually autistic TikTok reaction as voted by in the polls that I do over on Patreon. You get to choose what exclusive content you want. I've got hours and hours of stuff over there now, and there's loads more to come. Quite a few more book reviews coming. I'm going to be reviewing Paige Liel's book, and then I think I'm also going to be reviewing Ellie Middleton's new book that came out on the 5th of September. If you want to just stay here on YouTube, you might enjoy this video I did where I reacted to the fake disorder cringe subreddit, which I spoke about a few times within this video, and I'll also obviously link the first video that I made about Sia, the 40-minute video, in the description below. Hope this video is not 40 minutes as well, but with me, you never know. Anyway, thank you so much again, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye.
Oh, well, we need to watch this bit. Oh, look at the duckies. Very good video as per usual from Meg from I'm Autistic. Now what, please go over, like their video. It will be down in the description. And if you are new here, make sure to like the video, of course, and subscribe if you want to see some more clips from your Tom and you want to support me. I don't have a Patreon, but I do have members, which is basically the same thing. And my memberships are only £1, something around $1. I can't remember what the conversion is, but you get access to a whole bunch of things. And you get to see all these live streams just uncut, all the things that I cut out from my stream clips that just are a bit inconsequential, but might be a little bit funny, you know. And I'll see you later.